This program is brought to you by Community Trust Bank, Medical City, Bid Select, and the Neely School of Business at TCU. Welcome to Platforms, the life-lifting news program for women. Now, here's your host, Shivaun Palmer.
Welcome back, everybody, to Platforms, the life-lifting news program for women. Our next guest is Shama Kabani, and this lovely lady is author of the book, The Zen of Social Media Marketing. She's a good friend of Platforms. We've had her on a couple times prior, and we're delighted to have her back. Shama, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Okay, this is interesting. You just landed a book deal.
Yes.
On social media. So you've got a print book out there that's doing incredibly well. Why don't you tell our audience how you started on this whole journey with social media? You're a graduate of the University of Texas in Austin.
I am. I am a Longhorn through and through.
That's right. Take us through this story. It was quite remarkable when you graduated and you were trying to sell the concept of social media to some fairly large companies.
Right. So when I graduated, this was in about 08, and then my thesis was during 07, so I was interviewing with big companies in 2007, and I just studied social networking and why people use it as part of my master's thesis. So I had this big thesis and I was really excited about it, and I thought, this is going to be earth-shatteringly good stuff, right? And of course, when you think that and you go out there, the world has other plans for you.
That's right.
So inevitably I went out and big corporations said, you know, social media, we really don't think this is going to be big for us. I don't think our clients needed Web 2. What? You know, so it was really disappointing. I had a series, I think at least 18 rejections, interviews, and just saying, no, this isn't what we're interested in.
So you kind of wanted to lead their effort in that area of the company.
I did. I wanted to work in the corporate world. I wanted to be a consultant. So I was really applying into consulting companies because I thought, you know, this is the stuff I love, and how fun would it be to work on different projects and whatnot. But, well, I guess life had other plans for me. So
you were destined to be an entrepreneur. Okay, you were named one of Business Week's top 25 entrepreneurs under the age of 25, which is remarkable. What set you on this path for success? Because I mean, you're just a fireball, and you've got so much life. But what do you think deep down you had in you that has created this enormous success?
Oh boy. So three things. I'd say good parenting, because I had a lot of support family-wise growing up to sort of, you know, the whole, I think my generation especially is the do whatever you want, be whatever you want generation. So I definitely had that. I definitely think it's a little bit as luck. You know, there's a lot of people who are very talented out there, and I think luck has a lot to do with that, and I would never deny that. And I think the third is just sheer hard work and sort of loving what you do, and so then it's not hard work. I guess, you know, the way I look at it is you can work hard at something, but it doesn't have to be a struggle per se. Right. So those three things I think have just sort of kept me going here for a while now.
Shama, let's talk about social media, because when we were talking earlier, there's a multi-generational workforce out there now. And I had a friend who wrote a book, From Ties to Tattoos, talking about the dynamics between like the millennials and then the older workers. So when you go in to consult with clients, how do you address that issue? Because a lot of people my age, the boomers, are just trying to wrap our minds around social media. Yeah,
and you know, and you see a real distinction, Shivaun. I think when people are older, often it's their kids that'll pull them in. So, you know, when I go in to talk to maybe an older crowd, they'll say, yeah, my son finally got me on Facebook, or I'm on this site. And so, and for the most part, I see that, you know, before, like a year ago, when I used to speak to audiences across the country, I'd see people and they'd be hesitant. I'd ask people in the room, and I said, how many of you guys think social media is a fad? And hands would go up, and now I do it, and no one thinks that way. So I think just in a very short time, we've come a long way from everyone sort of saying, God, I don't want to do this, you know, this isn't going to stick around, to saying, okay, I know I have to do this, and now I want to learn how, right? So, I mean, you do see people coping with it. I think there's still issues like privacy issues. I mean, that's been a big one, especially for the older generation, because if you see my generation, which is like the millennials and Gen Y, you know, we're very comfortable with our life being a very open book.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the things we talked about last time we were together was that distinction between home life and work life. And that, you know, that's really blurry for us. We don't really have that sharp distinction. And I think for a lot of the older generation, especially baby boomers, it's a very sharp distinction.
Absolutely.
Is work and home is home, and then you have social media, which really sort of throws everything up in the air. So I think we're seeing some struggles there, but you know, I'm confident that we've come a long way, and more we're going to just sort of adapt and you know, use this just as we would email or any other technology.
Well, in your book, you comment, it's a great point that you own your website, but you don't necessarily own your Facebook account. So isn't there a fine balance between utilizing that as a marketing tool and dovetailing into a legitimate business. So how do you balance that?
Right. So, you know, a lot of times I'm asked, well, if I've got a Facebook profile and a Twitter, from business owners more so, sometimes there are people even looking for jobs, and they'll say, do I still need a website? And they say, absolutely. Yep. Because, you know, all these social networking sites, they're really temporary, and you don't own what's on there essentially. I've seen people's Facebook, you know, accounts go kaput for no good reason. It happens all the time. You know, their main, so what now, 500 million users. So they've got to balance it. But if you have a website, you own that material, and you can definitely use Facebook and Twitter and other social networking sites to drive traffic to your website, and you know, that's never going to go away. So yeah, definitely a good idea to still have your own website, and it's what we recommend to all our clients as well. And then use the social networking sites while they're out there. Definitely leverage them, but build out. Right. Rather than building, you know, all sort of putting all your eggs in that one basket.
How do you realize? How much information do you know to put out there before it starts getting annoying? There really is a very strong strategy behind social media.
Yeah, and I think that the key here is value, right? The things you're going to share. How are you going to provide value to people? Exactly. And you have to sort of ask yourself that every time it says, what are you doing right now? And sort of rephrase that to yourself and says, you know, what am I doing right now that's going to help people
this person
in some way? And so, you know, the difference can be very minute if you look at one way saying, boy, you know, 6:35 is a mess today. Well, great, you know, now it's sort of cathartic, I guess, to share that with people. But then you look at that and you say, you know, 6:35 is jammed, there's an accident off of Beltline and whatnot, stay off the road. Right. Well, you've still shared the same sentiment, but maybe you provided some value out there to someone who was going to take that route home. So.
What do you feel about companies that use the Facebook and Twitter just to put general, like, breaking news items out there as a service to their followers, and how does that ultimately benefit them as a business? I mean, is that a good strategy? Or?
Absolutely, and you know, it's companies who do that sort of use Twitter or Facebook as a news feed, and it's like that because if you look at social media, it's one definition is all these social networking sites that we look at, but the bigger definition is that people are now the media. And they consume information at different levels. I mean, there's people right now watching us talk, and this is their mode of preference. And there's people who are going to still prefer to read a transcript. There's still people who are going to prefer to get, you know, 140 characters of what we talked about. And so businesses, I really think now have the challenge of saying, the market is not in one place. You're not going to be able to reach everyone through TV. You're not reaching everyone through the newspaper. You're not reaching everyone through the print book. In fact, you know, what's funny is with my book that came out, the Kindle sales were so high, and we're selling way before even the print book, you know, hit the stores. And so just amazing as to how people like to absorb information.
Absolutely. So as a business person, you really have to look at that dynamic and put your efforts out there in multiple distribution, or you're going to kind of be behind the power curve.
Right, because your audience is everywhere now. And if you think about, you know, women, specifically Shivaun, you know, 40, 50 years ago, you could pretty much peg down what a 35-year-old woman was like. Probably 2 kids, stay-at-home mom, you know, watches television, goes to church on Sundays. You've got a very specific persona, if you will, as we use in the marketing industry, of who that person is. And now you look at that, you know.
Totally mobile.
I'm sure, I'm sure that, you know, to find me like 3 or 4 women who are 35 who are exactly the same, and you can peg in that way. You can't.
That's right.
You know, you've still got your soccer moms, but you've got career women. You have so many distinctions now that persona is no longer that simple, easy to reach demographic.
Shama, we're going to go to break. When we come back, I want to talk about your recent trip to Switzerland, which you thought was very enlightening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Shivaun Palmer with Platforms, a life-lifting news program for women. We'll be back in a moment.